Hey legends, Ben here from Life's Peachy Fit Byford, back on YouTube for another episode, and today we're speaking about progressive overload, how to maximize this old school principle, okay, to get the most out of your training and increase our strength gains over time. And we'll also go through how we run progressive overload cycles in our facility, Life's Peachy Fit in Byford. And we'll also go through some common mistakes and things to be aware of that will hinder your performance if you don't understand the principle behind progressive overload. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the episode. Hey legends, Ben here, back with another episode on Life's Peachy Fit and our YouTube channel. Today we're going to take a deep dive into one of the most important principles in strength training and how to actually increase our strength safely over time, and that is progressive overload. So we'll get straight into it. We'll start with the first 4 weeks, so weeks 1 to 4, when we're starting a new strength cycle. So I'm going to take the example of what we do in class here. So if you've been a member with us, you'll know that Mondays we do back squats and Wednesdays we do deadlift and bench press. So at the very start of our cycle, the first 4 weeks are designed to build a strong base, okay? Here we want to focus on correct form, so making sure that we're getting a good range of motion through each of the lifts. Okay, we want to think about mind to muscle connection and that we're actually activating the muscles that are required in each of those lifts. And yeah, basically we're building a base that we can build up from over time. This helps reduce injuries and it also helps us reset the body from those heavier sets that we have just finished from the cycle before, okay? And what you'll notice is the start is quite light in terms of the percentage of the 1 rep maxes that we can lift, okay? So typically 50 to 60% of our 1 rep max, which obviously is almost half of what the weight is that we can lift for 1 rep, okay? And like I said, it's designed to reset the body, build a strong base, and it's typically higher reps here as well. So higher reps, adding in some volume, and then over the weeks, we'll start to reduce the reps and increase our percentages. The next 4 weeks, or weeks 5 to 8, we'll typically start to see the percentages increasing, all right? Typically between 60 to 70% of our 1 rep max, okay? And the reps will start to reduce compared to the first 4 weeks. And what we're working here is our muscular endurance, okay? We're getting a lot more reps in than our last stages in the cycle, okay? And yeah, we're just working on that volume, really dialing in that technique, making sure the range of motion is really good and we're getting correct depth and movement through the lifts, okay? And yeah, like I said, we're starting to increase percentage and drop down those reps. All right, so we're heading into the third part of a typical progressive overload cycle, weeks 9 to 12. So as I've said, our percentages are going to start to increase. So this phase is working between 70 to 80% of our 1 rep max, and this is the hypertrophy phase, okay? Typically building a little bit more muscle here, a little bit of lean muscle, so we can produce the force correctly to be able to lift the weights as we get into the higher percentages. All right, we're starting to get down to the business end now, starting to get really heavy, and this is where we're seeing a lot of strength gains. So this is our main strength part of the cycle. We typically do this a couple weeks less, so we don't do 4 weeks at this kind of intensity and percentage. All right, so we'll do week 13 and 14, between 80 to 90%, all right? As I said, we're working on our strength here, okay, and typically between the 1 to 3 rep range. And we head into our final stage of a progressive overload cycle. All right, the last 2 weeks, week 15 and 16, we're typically 90% plus of our previous 1 rep max, okay? And this is working our maximal strength. So this is where we typically see our personal records or PBs, okay? With these main lifts. You can see the massive amount of base that we have been building through over the previous 3 months, okay? So we're not doing anything fancy here. This is old school strength training principles that prove time and time again to get strength results, okay? And that's why our members are consistently hitting personal records every time we start a new cycle, and then come the end, they're surprising themselves and hitting a personal record on their squat, bench and deadlift, okay? It's because we've built that huge base, we refined technique, we've gone backwards in terms of the percentages and the load that they've been lifting, and we build back up. So when we get to this stage, all right, we are more than likely going to hit a personal record. So the first week here, we'd probably do, you know, build up to a heavy set of 2 reps, and then week 16 will be our hit a 1 rep max in a certain amount of time. All right, I wanted to give a little example of 2 weeks with the back squat movement, okay? Just how we'll break this down and show progressive overload with this particular movement. All right, so with the back squat, let's take an example of our member has a back squat 1 rep, okay? The max lift they can do is 100 kilos, all right? Obviously making it super simple to work out our percentages. All right, if you had a back squat of 120, to work out these percentages, you go 120 times 0.6, okay, which is 60%, and that will give you your first 2 sets weight, all right? And then to work out your 50%, all right, you can just halve it, or if you want to do it in the calculator, if you don't trust your maths, 120 times 0.5, all right? And that will give you 60 kilos to work off, all right? So taking the example of 100 kilos here, our first 2 sets, this is the first week, okay, of our new strength cycle. We do 2 sets, all right, 6 reps. So our heavier sets are first here, and 60% of our 1 rep max. So if my 100 kilos is my 60% of that, so the 2 sets at 6 reps will be at 60 kilos. And then the next 2 sets, we've got 10 reps. So we're reducing the weight and increasing the volume. This is probably whole nother video on why I really like this technique, okay? And then the percentages here is 50%. So my 2 sets of 10 are going to be at 50 kilos, all right? And then how we would overload that. So week number 2, we'd probably have 2 sets at 6 reps again, okay? So the same volume, but we're increasing our percentage for the first 2 sets. So that might be at, say, 62.5%, okay? So our week 2 here would be 2 sets at 6 reps at 62.5. All right, so that'll be 62.5 kilos. And then our 2 by 10 reps might be at 52.5, okay? So it might seem like minimal changes, but as described before on the cycle and the 4-month cycle, you're building such a strong base that when you get to your 1 reps and maximal strength, you've done all of the work, you've refined your technique, your range of motion is really good, and yeah, just building that base to reduce injuries and give you the best chance possible of improving on your 1 rep. I just wanted to add a bit more info with progressive overload. weight is not the only thing that you can progressively overload, okay? There's a number of other ways. I'll talk about a few here and give you some ideas, all right? We can increase the reps, all right? So if we find that we're warming up, we had a big week of training the previous week and the weight's actually feeling quite heavy. What you can do here instead, all right, let's pretend we're in week 2. We might do 2 sets at 60%, so the same weight, but we might go 7 reps here, all right, instead of 6. So we're progressively overloading the amount of reps we do, okay? Or we can increase our sets. So we might do 3 by 6 reps at 60%, okay? Same again with the last 2 sets. You might do 11 or 12 reps instead of the 10. So there's a lot of other ways to progressively overload the movements and our body. And that comes down to understanding how you're feeling on the day, what you've done the day before. Maybe you did some gardening or some yard work and you're feeling pretty sore. That's when you've got to ask yourself the question, hey, am I going to be able to do this without injuring myself? And is this the right day to increase the weights? Not so much around this time, but when you're starting to get to the 3 to 6 rep range or 1 to 3, it's very important that you listen to your body, how it feels in the warm-up and how the warm-up sets on the movement feel before you determine about increasing your weight. All right, another couple that we can do, there is others as well, but reducing the rest. So in our classes, we recommended the first 2 sets to warm up at a light weight, and then we go a set every 2 minutes 30. So you're typically getting 2 minutes, 1:45 to 2 minutes of rest between our main lifts. But what you can do is, especially on the lighter weeks and your lighter percentages, instead of the 1:45 to 2 minutes rest, you could go 1:15 to 1:30 rest, okay? So you're reducing that central nervous system break and you're overloading the body in that particular way. And what you'll find is you might be a little bit more sore the next day, or you've got a little bit more lactic acid in the muscles. That'll be because you've reduced the rest and you haven't given your body enough time to rest adequately. And then one of the other most popular ways to progressively overload is increasing the time under tension. And a typical way that we do this is by either adding a negative, so say a 3 to 5 second negative, nice and slow, and then fast up, okay? So increasing that time under tension can overload, and it's a good tool to use on those days that we don't feel like going heavier. Just controlling that movement and listening to the body. And you can also add pauses in as well. So we've done this in our program before. We've added a 2-second pause in that bottom position of a squat and then driving up, okay? It's just increasing that time under tension and improving the progressive overload techniques. I mentioned this before, but it's very important that you listen to your body when we are doing strength training and progressive overload. All right, some things to look out for that are vital signs that you probably need to step back or reduce your percentages and build back up over time is joint pain. If you're getting a lot of sore knees, okay, or on the deadlift, your back's starting to really ache, it's usually a sign that you need to go a little bit lighter. You need to focus on your technique, your range of motion, maybe do a bit of stretching, do a bit of extra recovery outside of the gym, okay, so that that joint pain goes away, okay? It's fine to feel sore in your muscles, like, oh, my muscles are a little bit sore today. But if you've got aching knees all the time and your back's really stiff in the morning, it's usually a sign that you need to reduce the weight, okay, and build back up, improving your technique over the weeks. A decrease in performance, okay, is another vital sign that you're probably working too hard or you increase your percentages too fast, okay? What we see a lot over time, especially if you've got a bit of resistance training time under your belt, like you've been training for 5, 6+ years, it's a lot harder to improve your personal best or your 1 rep maxes. And if you start to see your performance drop in terms of hitting percentages in, say, weeks 10 to 12, if you're not hitting those percentages, then it's typically a sign that you need to reduce it down a little bit, maybe increase your reps as opposed to your weight, and build back up. And then also poor sleep and fatigue. If you find that you're having really bad night's sleep and you feel tired all the time, it's usually a sign that you're starting to trickle over into the overtraining area, okay, which means that you're not letting your body recover enough to back up your training sessions and hit it with intensity. And yeah, you're starting to fall off a little bit in terms of your recovery. And just on the poor sleep and fatigue, okay, we want to make sure that we're aware of our body and remember that recovery is where we actually grow. All right, so we come into the gym, we break down those muscle fibers, and that's not actually how we get strong. How we get strong is by building those muscle fibers back up to where they were, but a little bit more from previous to the session. Okay, so training in the gym is just a tool that we use to break down the muscles so we can get stronger. Where we get stronger is actually in the recovery or the areas outside of the gym. So that means making sure that our nutrition is on point. We're eating our protein targets, okay? We're making sure that we're giving our bodies enough building blocks and protein and amino acids to make sure that our muscles recover from day to day. All right, we make sure that we're sleeping 7 to 8 hours, hydrating ourselves, okay? And yeah, participating in recovery techniques outside of the gym, such as stretching, foam rolling, sauna, ice bath, okay? We're doing long walks that are flushing out the body, okay? All these things help us get better inside the gym and help us recover from our sessions day to day. Cool, and our last point that I want to run through is the hierarchy of importance in terms of progressive overload. So, number 1, form. We want to make sure our technique is sound. We understand the movement correctly. We have enough flexibility to work through that movement, okay, before we go on to the next stage, which is range of motion, all right? Range of motion, making sure that we're hitting full depth in our squat, okay? Making sure that we're getting the bar to the chest for our bench press and also locking out. And same with our deadlift, okay? We're not doing little Romanian deadlifts here. We want to make sure that we're going from the ground, standing all the way up, okay? So that's the next stage. Then we have control. We want to make sure that on our squat, we're not falling down into our heels, okay? We've got the bar on the back, we're controlling that eccentric portion, and then we're going fast on the way up. Similar to your bench press, we want to make sure that we're controlling that weight down to the chest as opposed to bouncing it off, okay? We're really activating through all of those muscles, okay? We're making sure that we're controlling that eccentric phase. And then the last stage, we've got weight, okay? Once we've got those 3 things dialed in, then we can keep adding weight. And what we want to avoid here is rushing the reps. Quite often we see our members jump in after the warm-up and they add the weight on and they're rushing the reps, okay? We want to make sure that everything is controlled, especially when we're talking about our progressive overload. Next up, we've got sacrificing form for weight. And often we'll see when people they want to lift heavy, okay? And that's all they're thinking about. I wanna do 2 20-kilo plates for my back squat. But then they get to the back squat and their squats look like this, all right? So they're sacrificing the weight for the previous things on the hierarchy, okay? So we wanna make sure that we can go all the way down into our squat, standing up tall. We've got the form, we've got the range of motion, and we've got the control, okay? Too often we see sacrifice of form, all right, to add weight on. And the last thing to avoid is our range of motion starting to be sacrificed, okay? We wanna make sure that that's staying at the full range of motion, all right, and not decreasing at all. We typically see this with someone that's either really sore, they've been training a lot and they're struggling to get into that depth on the squat, or they're coming back from injury, all right? So we wanna make sure that we're not going too heavy where the weight starts to sacrifice our range of motion. So remember, pull that back, okay? Get the range of motion sorted, form, range of motion, control, and then we can increase the weights. That's it from me today, legends. Hope you guys learned something from this. And remember, progressive overload isn't a sprint, okay? It's a marathon. We wanna be looking at a long time horizon here, all right? And we wanna make sure that we're listening to our body and we are starting with a strong base, okay? A strong foundation, and we're gonna slowly build that up over time, all right? Thanks for watching if you've made it this far, guys, and we'll see you on the next episode.